Welcome to the CJ Murray Podcast. This is an exploration of music and growth on an intellectual, philosophical, and emotional basis. Today's guest is none other than my lovely wife, Megan. She's currently a senior in college studying studio art, looking to get her master's and working towards building a brand off of a neurological phenomenon known as synesthesia. It combines music and art and people, and in this episode, she breaks down all kinds of nuances of what it's like to experience this. And whether you're involved in the creative crafts or you just enjoy interesting people, I guarantee you'll get some great things out of this episode. Thank you guys so much for listening, and now please enjoy this episode with me and my wife, Megan Murray.
Thanks for having me, babe. This is gonna be fun.
This is gonna be fun. So
it's just funny because it's you.
Oh man. Okay.
I've done plenty of interviews before, but it's different because you already know half my answers. So
yeah, but it's a different platform.
It somehow
really
makes
unique.
me nervous.
Okay, we're gonna start with synesthesia.
Yeah.
Talk to the public. What is synesthesia? Because you have that, correct?
Yes. I would say so. I have not been officially tested in some medical grade place, but I've done plenty of tests on my own, and it lines up with everything that I experience. Okay, so synesthesia, it's a word that comes from the Greek, meaning sin, like
put together.
Yeah, it how do you describe it? Synthesize. If you Google it, it'll tell you that when you experience one thing, you experience two things. So typically, if you have food in front of you and you take a bite, you eat the food, you taste the food, but you might also smell the food. That's a very natural example of two triggers from one thing. So synesthesia is kind of that same process, but with other things. So in my case, I have two kinds, and there are tons of different kinds, definitely worth a Google. But when I hear music, I see colors, not in a physical sense of it's right in front of me or it's blocking something or anything like that.
Well, you have something with you, right? The booklet. Do you think it'd be worth walking through?
Yeah, that would make a lot more sense. Okay, so this is a booklet that I created for a class. About synesthesia. It just walks through the question, what is it? And this is a great resource for me because it sums up all of my Wikipedia and other sources. So there are 4 things that really cause synesthesia. The blending of senses. So first one is genetics. A lot of times, if one person has it, it's more likely that their descendants will as well. So genetics definitely plays a factor into it.
Do your parents have synesthesia?
Not that I know of.
Okay.
I don't think so.
Just thought I'd ask.
No, that's a fair question.
Yeah.
Mom?
Mom, do you want to talk about this?
No,
Oh.
I don't think so. I'm guessing I'm probably the first one that's at least known enough about to say yes.
Second?
Second one, neural connections. Synesthesia can be associative. So senses are connected and associated in a person's mind. So yeah, it's natural, it's genetic, but it's also willful. It's a good way to put it because I can purposefully create connections. I think it does. It's just it starts naturally, and if I want to continue with it, that's where the imagination comes into play.
Kind of like a muscle. It's like the muscle's naturally there.
Sure.
It naturally fires, but if you flex it, it really can take off.
Yeah. Another way to describe it is everybody has reflexes. Everybody has reflexes, and so synesthesia is like a reflex. But if I strengthen those same muscles, I'll have a stronger reflex.
Interesting.
That's another way I would put it.
Interesting.
Third one, and there are 4, infant development. So scientists speculate, and a lot of this is still a new field, and that's why it's so interesting to be experiencing it alongside with discoveries. I'm like, oh yeah, wow, you can prove it now? That's amazing. There are tons of different brain scans that are coming out that will show, activity in 2 areas of the brain with one trigger, just like what I experienced. So scientists speculate that everyone is born with a degree of synesthesia. It's been shown that children experience synesthesia way more often than adults do. So it makes sense that, I mean, as you grow older, maybe not for me and you because we are in creative fields, but you do lose some of your creativity as you get older. You start
Kids
to lose.
naturally explore.
Yeah, they naturally explore, they naturally world build or play. It often involves some kind of creativity or fantasy. So that makes sense to me. And then last is childhood associations, which also goes along with infant development. Even if not everybody experiences it, if you're what they call a true synesthete, you've had it since you were a little kid and you have examples to pull out.
Okay, so that's a great lead into our second. When did you first realize you were experiencing this? What's that looked like for you?
I would say it was probably in church. Someone would come up and sing a special, and I would have immediate associations. And like, I liked listening to certain people over other people because I liked what their voices sounded like to me, or looked like to me. Different people had different, like vibrato. If I were to characterize it, it always looks like a spiral or like a series of overlapping dots. And some people, I just like their spiral better than others. Or I like the colors that their voices had to me.
What's straight tone like?
What's straight tone?
Yeah.
It's like a horrible wavy line that's not quite straight.
How?
I don't know. That's just what it's always looked like.
Well, because what I would think is that
it's
like the more straight tone someone has, the less like it's just flat, right?
Yeah, but it's never completely flat. I've never met anybody that had a completely flat voice, unless it's auto-tune. Auto-tune is flat.
Interesting.
But natural vibrato is...
Has like a life to it.
Yeah, like a straight voice is more like a piece of lasagna that's been like pulled, but it still has the little ridges to it.
That's fascinating.
Really?
Well, because you think about vocal cords and just sound in general is vibrations.
Mm-hmm.
And when something's heavily auto-tuned where it takes out vibrato completely, yes, pitch is still vibrations, but you're almost sucking a life out of it because, I don't know, within someone's voice, there's still some level of imperfection, for lack of a better word.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
Interesting.
I would say that vibrato affects the shape of the visual for me. Pitch is more related to the color and the value that it has. If someone were to sing a simple bar of music, all those things, the pitch, the color, the shape, the texture, the movement, it's like a small movie sometimes in my mind. The characters that show up, the feelings that are evoked with it, it comes instantaneously. It's so fast. And so sometimes I'll just lean over to Christopher and be like, oh, it's this. When there's a lot more going on, but that's all I can express in one sentence. There's a lot more going on in my head than what I will typically say or know how to express.
We'll be sitting in church and we'll hear a song that either was good or bad. And for either of the reasons, I'll lean over and I'll be like, what did that sound like in your head? And it's interesting because when I think back, there's been images like, oh, her voice or the song sounded like a cathedral, but there's like a waterfall in the back and it's smooth and it's elegant. Or, oh, the song sounded like, I don't know,
but they're typically related to nature in some way.
Yeah.
Or I'll relate it back to something that is relatable enough. Like my example of the lasagna noodle. Most of us know what that looks like.
Okay, so then here's a question. What would you say would be qualities of songs that would give you more nature images in your mind versus not nature in your minds, like artificial?
Man, anything that's just straight chorals is going to sound more natural, like a choir or a group of people. Once you start putting in electronic sounds or other electronic instruments, that's where the more fantasy stuff comes into play.
Interesting.
Yeah. And then it starts going into more, I guess, not metal, but metal materials. It'll sound a little bit more man-made. Still stuff we're used to, but it will sound man-made.
Okay, so then question.
Yeah.
If you can think back, what did the Spider-Verse movie sound like to
Oh,
you?
that was almost 100% metallic.
Really?
Yeah, 100% metallic. It was glittery, it was shocking, it spiraled, it had so many strong shapes to it. Just like the movie did, if anybody
Yeah, very
remembers
rigid.
that. Yeah, but it was a very rigid, harsh, grating kind of sound almost. It was almost unpleasant, but it was fascinating. So you kept listening.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Probably very driving for the plot too.
Yeah, it had more like a gritty feel to it.
Yeah. Okay, so follow up. How about Interstellar?
I didn't. Well, okay, the movie was interesting, but I didn't enjoy it because it was so tense, and I had no idea what was going on half the time, and I was just like, "They're gonna die! Every last one of them are dying!" It was so tense. It was like the music had you at a point where, like, if you couldn't quite touch it, it was like the gap that you couldn't quite close, or something you couldn't quite touch.
Like it didn't resolve. It was just a constant.
It was a constant tension. Or like you're hanging off of a cliff and you're reaching for that last by one hand, and you're reaching for the next rock, and it's just out of your grasp. That's kind of what the music sounded like, because that's what was going on in the story. I thought score-wise, to match the storyline, it was excellent.
Survival is just out of reach.
Right. And that's kind of what the music helped to portray.
And then the future reached back.
Yeah, I didn't know what was going on. I wasn't paying attention to the music.
Anyone who's seen the movie will know exactly what I mean.
It was so interesting, though, because at the end it looked more like a kaleidoscope of things, which is what you were visually seeing, too. But
True.
Kaleidoscope was kind of the vibe I got.
Spoiler alert.
Oops.
But you wouldn't know until you wouldn't know what that would mean.
It was highly recommended to us, so we watched it.
It was
okay?
awesome. Yeah, I think I've seen it probably 3 times.
That wasn't your first time watching it?
Oh, no. I'd seen it with Michael.
He has great facial expressions that I didn't even know he hadn't seen it.
I saw it with Michael with the subwoofer and massive speakers, and it was just a cinematic experience that the bros just relished.
Well, now I feel bad because I didn't like it.
Well, but I mean, I could enjoy it. I could enjoy your reactions, and even if you didn't know what was going on, I mean, same thing with the Batman movies. I mean, I've seen those before.
Sure.
And so,
Bless you.
know it's a good movie when you can see it multiple times and the plot gets you each time.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
And to relate to something art related, one of my teachers had sold a painting of a landscape, and he said the most important thing that he thinks about while painting something is, how do I make this interesting enough that it's worth looking at and keeping for 30 years? How can I make this?
Yeah. It's going to hang on someone's wall for
Yeah.
30 years. Why would they keep looking at it?
Right. So I thought that was cool. That's a common denominator there.
Now, when it comes to synesthesia, is what you experience, are there other kinds of it? Is it specific to you? Like, how much of it is fixed and how much of it varies with other people?
I would say 99% variates.
Okay, but like how much?
A lot. So, okay, there's kind of 2 questions in there. One of them is, what are the different types of synesthesia? Yeah. That's probably important. And again, there's a lot. The most common one is numbers to color. So people will have whole characters related to the number 3. You know, the number 3 might be a really old lady with blue hair that sits in a rocking chair on the left side of the room. It can be as specific as that. Or it could be just a simple, 8 is a 16-year-old boy. Could be as simple as that. Or sometimes they're not even ages or characters. It's just a straight color or a texture. Like, I don't know, 10 is always silver and reflective like a mirror, for example. So that's the most common one. I've met a couple people with that kind. So that's one of the different kinds.
And you would experience that with sound, where different sounds carry similar.
Yeah,
elements.
it's not the same every time. If it's the same person, the person's going to be consistent. The person is always going to sound like that unless they take vocal lessons and massively improve. But it will still have some of the same qualities.
So in large part, people are fixed to a degree. And even if they improve, there's going to be some element of them, some timbre that is consistent.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Some people sound like spring. Some people sound like a waterfall. Some people sound like gritty rock on rock. Some people are pleasant to listen to.
Is there a sound that someone did that it just really implanted itself in your memory? Like, wow, that's so interesting.
I think they're all interesting to some extent because not everybody has a distinct picture, but most people will have something. There are levels to it. Some people will just be a color. Some people will be a color in a light direction. Some people will be a color in a light direction and a texture. Some people have movement. Some people have only movement. It depends.
And you've said that typically people will have two colors.
Yes. Right? Okay, so there's some of the ground rules. So let's go back to the types of synesthesia. I have two. I've never met anybody else that has the same kinds as me. So that's kind of a cool fact. So the two kinds, first one is music to color. So when I hear music, I see color with color meaning texture, shape, movement, yada, yada, all that. So that's one kind. And then the other kind, which is probably more interesting even, is the people to color. And there are some specific rules with that one that I'm learning. So every person that I've ever met is two distinct colors, no more, no less. Mm-hmm. I always see a primary one first, and then as I get to know you, get to understand you, your second one will appear.
This is a plug. If any of you know Megan, you can walk up and ask her that. Now, yeah. It gets more specific the more you get to know someone.
Right.
And like if there's someone that isn't talking to you, isn't interacting with you, it's like much harder to kind of read that, right?
Right. You can ask me what's my color, but I might not have an answer for you. Not because we're not friends or
you just
anything.
Haven't talked yet.
It just I haven't found your aha. We've talked about your core. Now I understand.
Like what matters to you.
Yeah, what matters to you, what's your personality. There are people that I will just off the bat be like, oh yeah, they're this. Can't be anything else. It's this. And it stayed consistent every time.
Can you tell if someone's ingenuine? This is we're married. Can you tell when I'm... the thing's not get into on a podcast.
As much as it's not a special ability, I don't psychologically read somebody that way. It just as much as anybody else. A lot of people can tell if someone's being ingenuine.
Are there colors that bring up question marks?
Not that I've experienced. I don't think so.
Like you read someone or you see their two colors and then you ask yourself.
I have preferences, but I don't think it's like you're a horrible person because you're blue. I don't think it's like that. It's just people, if you go spectrum introvert to extrovert, there are different sensitivities, there are different chromas, there are different saturations that mean different things. And just like you might have mostly introverted friends or might prefer extroverted friends, it's the same thing. I just prefer certain intensities of color for some people, but they're all beautiful.
So has there been anyone in the past week or two where something crossed your mind you thought was an interesting picture
in the past week?
Yeah.
We've met some people over this past week, and I was like, interesting. That's really fun. I don't know if you want me to name people on here.
Well, it's as easy as I know a friend. Or, for example, we had some friends over last night. Did anything come to your mind in terms of them?
Well, I already had figured those two out, so.
Yeah, but let's stick with that.
Okay.
They're relevant.
Okay, so one of the people that we had over also has has synesthesia. So that was really fun to try to peg her. But I've known her for years, and
she has the numbers to color, right?
Yeah, she has numbers to color, and also has related to synesthesia something with perspective that I don't fully understand, but I don't know what that means. There's a lot of different kinds. Um,
Or like, for
so
example,
so for her,
yeah.
her two colors are yellow and purple, and I figured that out within like less than a week of just knowing her. I was like, oh yeah, that's what it is, and it was polka dotted, and it depended. Typically, it was yellow with purple with little purple polka dots. Well, not little, medium purple polka dots on it, and sometimes it was inversed. It was purple with yellow polka dots, but it was always that one of the two. Play with that.
Interesting.
They were always very round, very fun, very full circle.
Huh.
Yeah. We can get to that later.
How about
My
him?
Internship. Him? He was more of like, I don't want to say gray, but it was kind of gray.
Okay.
It had a metal quality to it, but it was layers and layers of it, like a really fine piece of not jewelry, but like a fine piece of metal work.
Interesting.
Metal work, not
I can totally see that.
not like a statue but just something you would keep around.
Yeah.
You know, something that you would maybe display somewhere, something that you would use, something that was meant to be kept.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so then he mentioned something that he had. Can you talk about that and then try and make a profound connection between what he has and what you have?
I can try, but I've only been thinking about this for a couple of hours, so it's a new concept to me. It's called A-fantasia, which is kind of he said it was the opposite of synesthesia, and his wife has synesthesia, so I will make that connection because he did, and he has it. So it's kind of the absence of mental imagery. So the example that he gave, first, this is a new thing that they're learning. The term was only coined in 2015, so not even 10 years ago. This is new, that it's being talked about and figured out. So again, synesthesia as a whole is a new field.
Yeah.
But yeah, his example was picture in your mind an apple. So when you've done that, picture your apple. What color is it? Where is it? Make it roll off the table. Did it bounce? Where's the light coming from? What kind of apple? How big is it?
Was there lighting to it? Was there shadowing?
Right. And also, did you come up with it as I asked? Or was it already there? And so that kind of gives a sense of, and he showed a spectrum of where you are on your mental imagery. And
He had a chart of 5 apples that he had actually made in his own education, and it progressively got more simplistic from like a photorealistic apple
to just a simple, you can tell it's an apple.
Circle with the line.
Yeah. And then it went to a gray apple. So it didn't have color, but it had the shape. To vague idea of an apple, to a blank black bar. And so I wasn't fully realistic. You'd probably better at mental imagery than I do on that.
We were talking about this today.
Yeah.
It's really interesting. In fact, you texted asking if he has dreams, because for me, if I'm in a consistent sleep schedule and I'm like exercising or, everything healthy, I can have up to 8 dreams in a night.
This is true.
Yeah, and I can wake up and list off 8 storylines.
Like detailed storylines, not just, oh yeah, I went to a picnic and then I went to the park and then I drowned or anything like that. It's like, no, I had this intense storyline with this happened.
With betrayal. How does a character betray you in your dream and you didn't see it coming? Now, how this is relevant is because when he went through the apple illustration, he had number 5 was like as vague as you can get from an apple. And number 1 was like, this is a photo of an apple. When he went through that illustration, I could see a photorealistic apple in my head rolling off the table. And interestingly enough, just with sound, when it rolled off the table and it hit the ground, he asked, did the apple bounce? And I said, oh yeah, I know the apple bounced. And he's like, how do you know? And I'm like, believe it or not, I know, yes, I saw it, but I heard it in my mind.
That's so cool.
And my whole job description
Cool.
is learning how to hear things how you want them to sound, because, mixing and audio, that's that's what I do. So that's really what I train myself in. In fact, there's a training thing online called Sound Gym, and one of the exercises in training that you can do every day is it gives you a sound and you recreate volumes. And so you're training your mind how to hit volumes exactly as you're hearing them in your mind.
And he's let me do a level or two, and I can't tell the slightest difference.
Yeah.
He can tell the difference between like 0.1 decibels or something
That's
like that.
literally what you train for.
0.1 decibels. I can't
Now,
tell.
we say 0.1, and it's true, but by the time we get to 0.1, my fail rate's really high. I can, yeah. But anyways,
This guy.
where were we?
We were talking about A-fantasia and how it relates to synesthesia.
Right. So, not being able to see something in your head. I want to jump from that to just other generalities. Can you talk about like age groups, how they sound, personalities, how they sound, like are there divider lines where you can kind of classify people, maybe not as intentionally, but just naturally?
Yes. And I know this because for the past couple of years, I've been slowly building up a filing system of, well, just people I meet, experiences I have, strong imagery. I write it down. And I'm really glad that I do that because that's helped me to understand the generalities. So a lot of the generalities come out between people groups. So let's start there. So again, everybody is two colors. A lot of people are a warm color and a cool color, a light and a dark color. Sometimes they're typically, or they're color opposites to some extent a lot of times. And that's what kind of gives me the sense that this is a balanced person, typically. It depends. I like people that have opposites because they're more interesting, they're more dynamic. But, just as a general rule. So general rules, older people tend to be more desaturated and they're darker in color. Or they have like an old-fashioned color attached to them, like something that's not quite in style anymore, but it's still cool. And younger people tend to be, on the flip side, more vibrant, more light-colored, more trendy. Some people are trendy colored. Depends. But that's a generality. And that makes sense, too, because as you get older, you get more settled, you get more, you don't have as much energy to you. So it makes sense that your color doesn't have as much energy either. So you asked if people were static in the terms of unchanging. I don't think I've lived long enough to be able to tell that. So who knows? Maybe somebody that I know very well, their colors will slightly dim as they get older. I don't know. So they're probably not completely static.
There might be some people where they do get brighter.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'd be really interested into if there's any correlation between how a person grows in life, where you can have a person who's really depressed and you meet them and their life is really dull. And they even come across that way.
Yeah.
But then they grow, they learn, they mature, they pick themselves up. I really wonder if they would get more saturated.
Sorry, I had a thought that I don't think I'm going to say. So it would be really interesting if I met somebody just as a Christian, as if I met someone who is an unbeliever and then watched them as they accepted Christ and started to grow in Christ.
That'd be so interesting.
I'd be so interested to know their colors before and after that period. That would be really cool to me. I'd be really, I don't think I've experienced that yet. Because I mean, it's still new that I'm learning how to classify it. Yes, I've experienced this since I was a small child, but I didn't know what it was, and I didn't do anything with it until art school when I was like, oh yeah, it's this. Yeah. My classmates were like, what? What do you mean I'm this color? That doesn't make, how did you know? That's my favorite color.
Let's jump ahead to something.
Sure.
Because I'm really curious. So you're finishing up undergrad, you're going into your master's, and we're in the middle ground between whether or not you'll just get the 2-year master's or if you get the MFA.
Right.
I can't believe I haven't asked you this until now. If you were to get an MFA where you have to do a thesis the third year, do you have any idea what your thesis would be?
Well, my thesis statement? No, I don't. So, I mean, thesis statements, you're supposed to say something that you can quantifiably prove. So the MFA degree for an art degree, you have 1 year to write your thesis and then create a body of work that supports your thesis. And where I am now on painting Synesthesia, which we can talk about in a little bit, I don't think I'm ready. I'm still experimenting. I don't think I'm ready yet to make my I will die on this hill. I don't think I'm ready to do that. There's still a lot more that I need to do first.
Yeah.
And I'm just working towards it step by step. You were asking me about, we'll come back to what you're saying, but some more generalities. So far as people goes, and I don't know what this means, but one thing that I've noticed is a lot of my teachers, people that have been very influential, have been some sort of the color purple. They've been related to the color purple, either as a primary or a secondary color, and they're all very distinctly different. And you know how there are all those different tests that you can take, like, what color are you? And they're like, oh, wow, you're a fun person. You're pink. Something like that. People, I mean, a lot of people have done that at some point.
Yeah.
This is not like that. It's not that I'm have some random color wheel in my mind that I'm assigning you to. It's, okay, you might be pink, but what specific shade? Where exactly are you? I can pinpoint it down to the slightest difference. And so I think that's a good clarifier.
Yeah.
So each of those teachers have been purple for different. So one of my teachers is primarily light yellow and light purple, like the lightest lavender, and the lightest lemon yellow. Really pretty. One of my teachers was red and purple. He was very bold. He was good at what he did. He was confident. And the purple was also very vibrant and dark and rich. One of my teachers, and this is the only person that I've ever met that was one color, but two different shades of that one color. And it depended a little bit on her mood or where she was at, depending on which one was primary. But one of them was a very warm, almost leaning pink, vibrant purple. And the other one was kind of like a stone, dark, cold purple. And she kind of flipped between those two purples. That's the only person I've ever met that was only one color. Yeah. Everybody else has always been two. So that's pretty fun. So far as other general statements, I would say that different types of music have general patterns. So I learned this at a barbershop quartet, actually, that acapella music is monochromatic. It's very unified. It's one color. You can create anything with it, but it's one shade.
Like you can get different kinds of textures, different shapes, but it's always monochromatic.
But it's always monochromatic. Depending on the song, it's sky blue, but it's like you can create a value scale with that sky blue color. And that's the color of the song.
That translates to black and white.
Right. So that's acapella music, monochromatic. Or jazz music is also kind of purple. Rock music is, not that I listen to rock music, but I know what it sounds like. It's red and black and gritty and hard edges, not a single soft edge. The more electronic that something becomes, the more it kind of glows a little bit. That's how I would describe it. Choral things, again, are more natural sounding.
I'm just curious.
Yeah.
What does some of my music sound like too?
Oh, it glows a good bit. Yours is really unique. I've never met anybody that I've never heard music like yours before. It has sort of a kaleidoscope effect to it where it could be a number of different things. It depends. I've always really enjoyed your music. Yeah.
Do you have any other examples of like what people would look like more texture-wise?
Texture-wise?
Yeah.
People as a whole aren't typically textures. There are more patterns and shapes. Music has more textures. People are more shapes.
Why do you think that is?
I don't know.
Huh.
It's just
That's so interesting.
it's just how I view the world.
Huh.
People are not as textured. They're more shapes.
Huh.
Yeah.
Interesting.
So one question that I get a lot is, well, so if you experience music to color, is it every single note is a specific color? Because there are people that way. Different composers. If you read about, it's so fun. If you read about them, they'll have written this great piece of music and they're directing it, and they like freeze everything and they're like, stop, the violin, you played an F sharp. I told you specifically it was supposed to be lime green, and you played it a teal green. How dare you? Please play your correct.
Have there been people that have actually said that?
Yeah. Yeah. And just the note itself is so specific a color. That's not quite how I see it. It's more songs rather than individual notes.
Like conceptual?
Yes. However, if you sit me down at a keyboard or piano, there are generalities, again, that I can pull out. So
like I can play a note and a color may come to your mind.
a
but
color
it's not,
may come to mind,
Yeah.
but it's more a lightness and darkness thing.
But
Or
if I
temperature.
play two notes, do you think the major or minor could have an effect on what colors come to your mind?
I don't know. I've never tried that before.
Can't believe you haven't tried this before.
I haven't. There's a lot I haven't tried.
I'm
like,
actually amazed we haven't sit down and really workshopped this.
I know. It's like
Yeah.
a puzzling phenomenon over here. Yeah, let's just not touch that, you know. But yeah,
Oh, yeah.
if you sit me down at a piano, I can kind of divide the whole keyboard into 4 major quadrants, equal quadrants. So the very lowest quadrant is going to be, I almost divide it like seasons, like the 4 seasons. So the first one is winter. It's cooler, it's darker. It's winter.
Oh, like on the keyboard?
Yeah.
Like lower to higher?
Yeah.
Okay.
So that's the winter quadrant. And then the next one is autumn. So that's warmer, but it's still pretty dark. That kind of has an overall orange-brown hue to it. And then the next quadrant is summertime. So that's the brightest quadrant. That's the brightest, most vibrant, most fun to play, fun to hear.
Yeah.
It's just kind of, you want to play in it. And then the last one, all the way on the right, the highest, it's spring, but it sounds like an icy spring. Like everything's just starting to defrost. It's a little tense still, a little brittle. And those are where more of the pastel colors are. And so within the piano, I wouldn't say like this note is pink.
Yeah.
You might have multiple pinks on the piano. You might have multiple browns on the piano, but they're tinted based on what season they're in. So like I can throw out the color orange to the piano, but an icy spring orange is going to look different than your autumn orange.
Yeah. Yeah. Just to throw out the stories as it comes to my mind, I still remember we were in the car with David and I played a song. The song was called Human. Oh, I forget the band, but it's not an older song, but it's older. But anyways, we played the song for Megan and specifically asked her, what color is it? And what does it look like to you? And you said, oh, it looks like a bunch of rocks and boulders, but I see a bunch of orange.
I said orange rocks.
Orange rocks, yeah.
I said orange rocks, big canyon, orange rocks.
And if you look up the music video for Human by, oh man, this is gonna haunt me. Then the music video is the band in a canyon on a bunch of orange rocks.
It's so weird. So weird.
It was the weirdest thing.
Or like there have been times when I'm just starting to understand I'm just starting to develop an understanding of what color somebody could be.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, do you like, just a guess, sparkly teal? That's what I would kind of lean. And they're like, oh, my room was painted sparkly teal. It's my favorite color. I used to wear it everywhere. How did you know? And I'm like, oh, bless you.
Thank you.
So even just stuff like that, I don't know if there's some sort of communal element, or maybe they just wore it all the time. And I looked at them and I was like, oh yeah, they're probably that color.
Yeah.
Because a lot of times people dress similar to the color that I think they are. That makes sense.
Interesting.
So again, it's natural, like a reflex to me, but it is also associative.
Do you want to walk through the color and picture you have for me?
Yeah, that's fun. So CJ, as my husband, probably has the most developed picture of anybody, which makes sense. So, but it was also immediate when I first met him, and then it further developed. So CJ and I met maybe 4 years ago. 4 years ago, and within the first week, I had colors and shapes. So CJ was a specific shade of navy blue, a square, and then within that square was a very vibrant orange circle. And that was the immediate picture within, again, just 2-3 days of knowing you. And I even told it to a couple of coworkers. I'm like, yeah, that makes sense. Huh. And, it's probably nothing, but I was like, yeah, that does make sense. Because you were so fun and so structured at the same time. It was really cool. And that's how my brain categorized it, as a safe, sturdy square, but a really fun person within those boundaries, I guess is one way to look at it. And so you've got that square with a circle within it. And as we got to know each other more and we started dating, we started really talking more. What's interesting is that picture turned into 3D. So that square became a cube with a sphere inside. And so that was really confusing to me, because I was like, what is that? What is that? I didn't know anything, because again, I'm just starting to record my impressions and thoughts in that abstract way. And so we had a cube and a sphere, same colors, everything was the same. It just turned into 3D. And then as we got to know each other even more and got engaged and got married and just really became best of friends, that picture started to develop even more, and till it got to the point where it became a room, like a room you could walk inside, like a house. And well, not a house, it was just a single room, but there were different things within that room that were very meaningful. So that circle changed into orange glowing bubbles. They didn't pop ever. They were just always there. It was so fun. And there was a certain, I've never figured out a better way to express it, but a certain music, a certain a light beat, a light something. Melody. Yeah, that's probably the best word. A certain melody that the bubbles were moving in time to. It was almost not quite like a heartbeat, but I knew it was a core to who you were. And so that fun within the fun orange bubbles within the structured blue square moved in time with the heartbeat. And so there were other little things that appeared here and there, but that's just a general sense of how a picture could grow as I get to know somebody better. And everybody's completely different. I don't know anybody else that's a square.
So I'm just curious.
Yeah.
Before, at one point, you said that there was like noises from outside the room.
Yes.
Are they still there?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. So there were two noises. There's the melody, the heartbeat, the music within, and then there was a sound from without, as if something was trying to break in to the cube. That's still there, and I still don't know what that is or what that means. But if you're standing in the room, you could hear the music in the room and also the sound outside of the room.
Huh.
Yeah. So
I haven't delved into that thought in a while to deconstruct it again. I feel like that sound without, I feel like is that very hyper undisciplined part of me that wants to take over all the fun and the structure, which I don't know about the structure. I don't know.
I really couldn't tell you. That's another thing. If I tell you your colors, the next question if someone comes up to me and says, "What color am I?" and I say a color, the next question is, "What does that mean?" I really don't know.
Help me learn more about myself.
I'll write it down.
Man.
I'll remember, but I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah. Other people they have almost another aspect to them. Like they'll have the color, they'll have the shape, they'll have whatever, but they have a quality. Like somebody I know reminds me of a magician. And it fits his character if you would know him. He keeps his cards close to him. He's so fun, puts on a great performance.
Yeah.
Is phenomenal. You know, you can't think about him without thinking of some sense of awe. And he has specific colors and everything to go with it. But he has that extra element of being like a magician. Honestly, I should just write books. That's what I should do instead. I should just write books.
But like what kind of books?
I have like fantasy books where I can just write descriptions about people. I don't know.
Huh. Like whatever imagery people gave you, you turn it into a whole storyline.
Yeah, like they can become my characters, people that I meet in real life, because those are the best characters. If you can relate to them in real life, if they're based on a real character, it's going to be more relatable and more like something that you feel is possible in a book.
Yeah. So then, just because you mentioned books, what, in terms of business, how do you intend to brand your synesthesia or monetize it moving forward?
There are a lot of options. So the booklet that I pulled out at the beginning of this episode was very essential in me coming up with my personal branding, because that was the first time that I tried to put synesthesia into a visual form.
Yeah.
And it was so cool to do. And I had a lot of help, and I put in like 4 times as much work as anybody else on that project because it was important to me. And I knew it was going to become an integral part of my branding. And so as I developed my own logo and different pieces of stationery and just things like that, and there's more, but it was based on that basic color because I realized I have my own colors. And so when I was creating my own branding, I used my own colors to make that because it was representative of me and any services that I would offer. It's just kind of like, and they work well together in a branding sense, but it's kind of one of those Easter eggs that if somebody's just getting to know me or my business, that's kind of like, oh, wow, that's actually based on something. It's not just because you like those colors. Yeah.
Love that. Well, even walk me through how you'd go on Instagram and say, hey, send me your colors. Or no, I'm sorry. Send me a song you love, and I'll tell you what color it is.
Yeah. So that's something I've done a couple times now. Is I'll just put on my Instagram story, hey, send me a song that you like, a song that's meaningful to you, your favorite song right now, anything. Let me know what it is. I will listen to it, and I will tell you what it looks like to me.
Yeah.
And so when someone does that, I look it up, I listen to it just once, and I have a piece of paper, and as soon as that song starts, I am madly scribbling, trying to get it all down onto a piece of paper. And so once I get as much description as I can get, and I usually have like an abstract thumbnail to go with it, specific colors, specific textures, specific everything, right from just one listen through. And then once I'm finished listening through that song and I have this sheet of description, I'll go to Pinterest and I'll find things that look like what I wrote down. Yeah. And so the whole process takes me maybe like, I don't know, 10 minutes maybe. And then I'll send the person a summary of my description along with like 3 different pictures that will help.
Yeah. As a plug for Megan, I know you'd put that on your story.
Yeah.
If you ever have a favorite song and you ever want to message it to her because you're curious, I'm sure she'd love to still do that for you. It's at megans.colors, Instagram. So, okay.
Yeah, I've done that for teachers too. One
Yeah.
of my teachers especially has been very supportive, very interested, very like, wow, I've taught a lot of people, but that doesn't make any sense. I'm gonna help you.
I love that.
And so I've done a couple songs for him, and he's been very supportive of me starting the master's program, of me potentially doing the MFA with a synesthesia emphasis.
Yeah.
And so I've been really thankful and privileged to have such a great teacher.
Can I ask you a brutal question?
Yeah,
Oh man.
ask it.
So if you were to monetize that, where people give you music or whatever, and you create artwork off of that based off your synesthesia, what would give you a competitive edge over AI?
Competitive edge over AI. Ooh, that's an interesting question because that's true. With AI, you can generate anything. If you have this song and it reminds you of sunshine on the mountains, you can put that into AI.
Yeah.
AI cannot translate song into visuals, first of all. Not that I know of. Not that I've ever seen. Maybe it does. If it does, let me know because
Shoot
I'm
the
curious.
link.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm curious. But
Yeah.
I've never seen any type of AI generator. AI can generate music. AI can generate images, but it doesn't generate the switch between those two that I've been able to tell. You can send a style, and you might say, "Oh, this is in the style of this."
Yeah.
You know, or like XYZ artist. You
Yeah.
can imitate, but it's not original. This is something that's original to me. So my advantages would be it's authentic and original.
Okay.
This is something that you're getting something completely new and something that I experience.
Yeah.
It's not generated from anything. It's found.
Yeah. The phrase that came to my mind was, it's as though it was filtered through a soul.
Ooh, that's cool.
Because even if 5-10 years from now, AI did get to the point where it could do something similar to even what you're doing,
Yeah.
there's something about your life and experience and your, how your own mind creates synesthesia. Like, even an AI will never have your mind.
Mm-hmm.
And so when someone gives a piece of music, or even their story for that matter, and says, "Hey, recreate me," there's a heart that gets put into it, right? There's I don't want to be generic and say a care and a love, but if you create that, it's almost a piece of you as well.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's what really makes a piece of art meaningful. You can create beautiful things. You can
Yeah.
create things that are specifically meaningful to you as a single person,
Yeah.
or even as a group of people. You think this is meaningful, but it's that person to person, creator to person that wants something created. That's a
Yeah.
special relationship that AI cannot reproduce.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I think that those would be some of the main advantages. And in case anybody's curious on what it looks like for me to take a song and turn it into a painting or a piece of artwork, that's a process I'm still experimenting with. So I just wrote a booklet on that. Like, step by step, I took a song and broke down every single step of what I did to turn it into a painting. And I've tried a couple different ways at this point.
Yeah.
So this summer I did, I mean, you would know. I'm not saying anything new to you, but
Yeah.
I did an internship where I did exactly that. I took 5 different musical pieces that were familiar, that people would know, and I turned them into paintings, with some help from my MFA friend.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that was phenomenal. It was a really good experience for me because it nailed down part of my creative process.
Yeah.
So end products, those paintings, they were good. I was proud of them. They were great quality, but they were more illustrative.
Do you want to sprint through what the 5 were?
Sure.
Not to park too long in each one of them.
Yeah, sure. So the first one I did was on Doctor Who. It was one of the, I'm forgetting the name of it. It was called I Am the Doctor is the name of the music piece that I painted something on. And so something like that. Yeah.
You keep going.
So that song, and I'll explain the process in this one and just briefly, and then I'll just name the other pieces. So I started out with a color scribble, very similar to what I did when someone sends me an Instagram idea. I just scribbled It didn't matter what it looked like.
All about colors and shapes.
It was just, what are the colors that I see as I listen to this piece? So I listened to it on repeat for like an hour and just figure out the exact colors, the shapes, the value structure that I wanted. It was all right there in the piece. I just had to find it. And so once those things were secure, I put it away. And then I focused on, what kind of story do I want to tell? And that's where I got my main value structure from. So Doctor Who, I wanted some nod to like space. So I had spaceships coming in, and I wanted to show his steadfast character, his presence. I wanted him to have a great presence, where you just got a sense that this is a hero. And I made him stand by himself because he has different companions that come along, but he's a lone hero. And so I had him on the top of the steps, so that way you were looking up to him. And you had a single dark figure right there. That was the darkest part of the piece. And then around him was these massive skyscrapers with spaceships pouring down. And so as you just look at the piece, you get a sense of, this is a hero. This is a lone hero. And so once I had that established, then I added the color back in from what I had originally gotten. So it was a blend of my art training. I used a lot of different teachers' advice just in my head to create that. And that's something I wouldn't have been able to do without art school. But I added the synesthesia layer back on top of it, to get the right colors and the right, just true to what I had originally experienced. And so it made a really interesting piece. Yeah. And all of them are like that. That's the process I used for all of them.
Just for a record's sake, just to put it on the record, when we talk about Doctor Who, we are talking about Capaldi and Pryor.
Yeah. Best ones.
You can keep going.
Okay. So I did Doctor Who, I Am the Doctor. I did by Hans Zimmer. I did I'm so sorry. I'm forgetting I did Davy Jones' Locker. I did Mandalorian, just the main theme. I did Harry Potter, Hedwig. And so by the way, I wanted some sort of fantasy element to all of them. I wanted them to be recognizable. I wanted them to be set in a fantasy world. Yeah. And then I also did Swan Lake, which is more of a classical piece of music, but it still has the elements of, she turns into a swan. Yeah. So that was fun. Yeah. Those were the 5 pieces, and they were illustrative. They were conceptual. It was really fun. And at the end of it, I decided to try something new this semester because thinking through synesthesia and talking to one of my teachers who made some great points, synesthesia comes to me more abstract. Yeah. More as puzzle pieces. Yeah. Is how I've been putting it. Puzzle pieces that I can put together however I want. But they start very abstract. And so he was saying, why don't you paint something abstract? Just focus on the color, just focus on the texture, take pictures of something that's that color and that texture and paint that. So that's what I tried. And I don't think that's quite the way that I'm leaning towards. It was fun, but I don't know if that's what I want to do for the rest of my life. Yeah. And I don't know if I want to do illustrations to that extent. Yeah. Which was fun, but it also wasn't quite completely true to synesthesia.
Would that affect how you build up a library?
Yeah, probably. I mean, wait. When you
so like the way that he was veering you abstract, and you're talking about how that's not fully the direction that you'd go. Mm-hmm. One of the ideas that we had played around with was taking photographs of things up close, right? Abstract shapes. Yeah. But you were mentioning that that's not entirely the direction you'd probably go long run.
Yeah. Well, if you look at the piece, it's great. It's realistic. It's exactly what I wanted to do. So I succeeded on the piece. But if you were just to look at it, you wouldn't quite understand what I was doing.
It doesn't mean anything.
Well, it means a lot, but you don't know that until I tell you everything. Yeah. And so I could continue with that, but I'm looking for something that's more maybe this is just me liking visual aesthetics, but I want something that when you look at it right away, you know that it's special.
Has like a story or a message that
Right.
gets you.
And so that's kind of what all the illustrative paintings were. You look at them and you know that there's a story going on.
Yeah.
Yeah, it looks like it could belong in a storybook. There's so much to it.
Yeah.
You know that it's special right off the bat.
Yeah.
And the textural painting was more abstract and more true to how my thoughts naturally form.
Yeah.
And so I want to try to find a balance between those two where you know that it's special and you can tell it has a story,
Yeah.
but you also get a clear sense of what that might be for me.
And the difficult part of that, and this was part of the idea of taking a photograph library, but one of the difficulties is copyright. And if you have an image you want to convey, you can't just go online and just find photos from anywhere and piece it together in Photoshop to create a story
Right.
and then paint it. Like, you have to be original.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things we talked about. Even if I only use like 10% of an image and I change it and I resize it and I recolor it and I shave things away and add things and connect it, it still counts as copyrighted because someone else took the picture and I just manipulated the picture.
Yeah.
And so it still counts as copyrighted, so I can't sell it.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I need to find a balance between those two. But back to your original question about how do you monetize something like that? I gave examples of projects, like school projects that I've done in the past. What I would really like to do, and this would be kind of the focus of my master's and my MFA, is to be able to essentially scale up what I'm doing with the Instagram stories. Where if somebody has a very meaningful song or a piece of music that encapsulates a time period of their life, or grandma's favorite song on the piano, we want to make a painting for grandma. I want to be able to take those those pictures, and turn them into a painting, something that already has meaning. I was talking to a really good art mentor about how do you get paintings to sell?
Yeah.
Because anyone that's an art student or in a creative realm, it can be very difficult to land those sales.
Yeah.
So one thing that she said was people don't buy art paintings because they have to, in the sense of food, clothing, housing, insurance, things like that. Stuff that you're going to need. You buy it because it makes you feel something. And everybody feels music. There's such a globally recognized set of feelings that goes with music. That's if you watch a movie, there's cinematic music that goes with the story that you feel, and it makes it more powerful because of the music. And so what I'd like to do is tap into that and take a piece of music that's already meaningful and put it into a new form. Turn it into something visual that you can hang up on your wall and be like, I don't know, this song got me through a really dark time in my life.
Yeah.
But, I'm going to hang this painting on my wall. So when I look at it, I think of the song and I think of how this helped me overcome. So
it's really interesting because really what you're doing is you're wanting your career or your brand to personify how synesthesia works at its core. Like synesthesia, the Greek for the sin, it's a combination, it's a synthesis. And your brain synthesizes the senses together, the sound and the music. But really, that's what you're wanting to do with art. You're basically, as you said, taking the feeling someone already feels from music and saying, hey, I want to add to that feeling or reflect it in a whole nother light.
Right.
So now this song that, like you said, reflects an area, a time of your life that, or a person or an event or something, then you no longer even have to fully sit down and listen to it. You just look at the painting and you remember. And I'm sure even some people could just look at the painting and hear the song play again in their mind.
Probably. That's what I'd like to do.
Well, a really interesting example too,
What?
and this isn't quite as often, but for our wedding, I wrote a song for the Unity Sand. And it was based off of Psalm 34:14. For this God is our God forever and ever, and he will be our guide even unto death.
Yeah.
Right. And so we had a person that as a wedding gift had the verse framed and put on our wall. And now whenever I look at that, I can still hear the melody in my mind of the song
Mm-hmm.
because it was made off of the song.
Yeah.
So she beat you too.
No! No! Someone's already done it.
Oh man, I love that so much. Oh man,
So,
Megan, do you have any final thoughts
oh
to
man.
wrap this up?
So someone asked me, they said, what's so different about what you do as opposed to what I can do? Because, and maybe this is crossing the minds of somebody already, but I can do that. I can do that. What? There is something universal. If I say I saw red, or she was green with jealousy, or I was feeling blue today, there is that connection to feeling and color. I don't have to explain that to somebody. That's general. It's built into our culture. You know what that means. So what's the difference between if someone gives a piece of music and you feel the music? You can definitely fabricate and put together what you think it should be. If it's a sad movie, but someone was asking what's so different about what I do.
Or to reframe that, she was getting pushback because
Yeah.
you were explaining it, and she essentially was like, "Yeah, right. I see things too."
Yeah,
But,
and
yeah.
I don't mean that you don't.
Yeah.
I'm that's definitely a part. But do you know the specific color? Do you know the exact spot? Do you know the exact number of sides that shape of that song has? Do you know how to spin it different ways? Do you have art training? Can you actually turn it into something that's meaningful? If someone has a preference on like just working with clients, if someone says, yeah, this song, we played it at our wedding and the flowers were this color, can you please incorporate that in? Would you know how to work with a client that you had a completely different vision for that song and they wanted something that you didn't think fit at all? Would you know how to work with
Because
that?
for you, it's fixed. I mean, like, if you hear something, someone can't be like, "Oh yeah, but envision the same thing but different." It's like, to you, what you heard, it is what it is.
It is what it is, and it's usually abstract enough that I can twist it into multiple different things.
Hmm.
And that's so like if I hear the piece of music and I draw out that color study, it's usually general enough that it could be a wide variety of things.
Gotcha.
And still be true and consistent to what I had originally pictured. So what I would say back to that is this is something that I experience on a different level, in the sense that it's very, very specific, very genuine. And I am getting training to expound on that even more.
It's natural. It's second nature.
It's second nature. And it's something that I'm working to make even more accessible.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you mind if I finish off by explaining your colors just even a bit more?
Sure. Oh, yeah. That's another thing that part of why it makes me a good fit to do something like this.
Well, because as you've explained it,
Yeah.
you have the teal, and you talked about that in your branding, but also you're a white that can change based on who you're with. And so, as you've explained it, if you're with someone that's blue, you go a little bit blue, or as you're with someone else, you kind of mirror them a bit, even just conversationally in energy levels. If there's a high energy person, you can be highly energetic. If you have a monotone person, like, you know how to come to their level in its own way.
I think that's how my brain processes empathy.
Okay.
And if you go into a paint store, like a wall paint store, and you look at all those paint swatches, there are so many types of white that if you just looked at it without context, you'd say, oh yeah, that's white, or that's light ivory, or light cream, or you'd be able to, there are a couple of variations, but they all are tinted one way or the other. Very few things are truly completely white. And so when I, like you were saying, when I talk to different people, it's like I have a pile of white paint that is just barely tinted magenta to match a magenta person that I'm talking to. And it just helps me reframe how I'm talking to them, how I'm relating. So I would use something like that, I guess a knack for understanding somebody, or really just trying to understand somebody in their own language as I create the painting.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So to encapsulate all that, if you guys ever come across Megan and you're curious, you can feel free to ask. Megan, thank you so much
You're welcome.
for being on this podcast that
Yes.
you essentially co-own, because you co-built it by,
I'm behind the scenes.
yes,
Yes.
with your smile.
Aww. Aww.
Cool. Well, guys, thank you again so much for listening. So excited to have this episode, and I'm looking forward to seeing you guys in the next. See ya.